Chapter 1. The beginning of all riches. As revealed by the masked rich man from Happy Valley. The largest audience ever assembled in the history of mankind sat, breathlessly awaiting the message of a mysterious man who was about to reveal to the world the secret of his riches. In that audience were men who had tried and failed so often that they had all but lost hope. And there were young men and young women, mere boys and girls, who were filled with hope and courage and eagerness to learn the way to riches. There were doctors, lawyers, dentists, engineers and school teachers, waiting to hear what the speaker might have to say which would put them on the road to riches. Clergymen of every religion on earth were there, with the hope that they might gather from the message of the speaker some inspirational ideas they could pass on to the members of their congregations. Newspaper reporters were more numerous than bees, a great battery of cameras trained upon the speaker's platform, and the newsreel men were present with their moving picture cameras and sound equipment. There were taxicab drivers, mechanics, bricklayers, merchants, barbers, and newsboys, representing every trade and every calling on earth, and many of them had come from distant places. Slowly the curtain began to rise, the chairman walking to the speaker's dais raised his hand for silence. The noise died down in a silent hush, spread over the great audience. The introduction of the speaker was brief. The chairman simply said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I have the honor to introduce to you the richest man in all the world. He has come to tell you about the master key to riches." The speaker walked briskly to the speaker's dais. He was dressed in a long black robe and wore a mask over his eyes. His hair was of a grayish tint, and he appeared to be about 60 years of age. He stood silently for a few moments, while the cameras flashed. Then, speaking slowly, in a voice soft and pleasing, like music, he began his message. "You have come here to seek the master key to riches. You have come because of that human urge for the better things in life, which is the common desire of all people. You desire economic security which money alone can provide. Some of you desire an outlet for your talents in order that you may have the joy of creating your own riches. Some of you are seeking the easy way to riches, with the hope that you will find it without giving anything in return. That too is a common desire. But it is a desire I shall hope to modify for your benefit, as from experience I have learned that there is no such thing as something for nothing. There is but one sure way to riches, and that may be attained only by those who have the master key to riches. This master key is an ingenious device with which those who possess it may unlock the door to the solution of all of their problems. Its powers of magic transcend those of the famous Aladdin's lamp. It opens the door to sound health. It opens the door to love and romance. It opens the door to friendship, by revealing the traits of personality and character which make enduring friends. It reveals the method by which every adversity, every failure, every disappointment, every mistaken error of judgment, and every past defeat may be transmuted into riches of a priceless value. It kindles anew the dead hopes of all who possess it, and it reveals the formula by which one may tune in and draw upon the great reservoir of infinite intelligence, through that state of mind known as faith. It lifts humble men to positions of power, fame, and fortune. It turns back the hands of the clock of time and renews the spirit of youth for those who have grown old too soon. It provides the method by which one may take full and complete possession of one's own mind, thus giving one unchallengeable control over the emotions of the heart and the power of thinking. It bridges the deficiencies of those who have inadequate education through formal schooling, and puts them substantially on the same plane of opportunity that is enjoyed by those who have a better education. And lastly, it opens the doors, one by one, to the 12 great riches of life, which I shall presently describe for you in detail. Listen carefully to what I have to say, for I shall not pass this way again. Listen not only with open ears, but with open minds and eager hearts, remembering that no man may hear that for which he has not the preparation for hearing. The preparation consists of many things, among them sincerity of purpose, humility of heart, a full recognition of the truth that no man knows everything, that the combined knowledge of mankind has not been enough to save men from cutting one another to pieces through warfare, nor to restrain them from cheating and stealing the fruits of labor from their fellow men. I shall speak to you of facts and describe to you many principles of which Many of you may never have heard, for they are known only to those who have prepared themselves to accept the Master Key. A small but ever-increasing number of people who have attained the degree of fellowship. The fellowship is made up of men and women from many walks of life, of all nationalities and creeds. Its purpose is to reveal to mankind the benefits which are available through the spirit of the brotherhood of man. The fellowship was born of the necessity of rehabilitating a war-worn world into which civilization was brought to the very brink of destruction through World War II. The fellowship is non-sectarian and non-commercial. Its members work individually. It has no authorized leaders, but every one who qualifies for the degree of fellowship becomes a leader unto himself. The only condition that is required for membership is that all who qualify for the degree shall share with others the benefits they receive through the Master Key to Riches, as many others as they may find who are willing to prepare themselves to receive the benefits. The fellowship prepares men and women to relate themselves to one another as brothers and sisters. It recognizes the great abundance of material riches available for mankind and provides a rational plan by which every person may share in these riches in proportion to his talents, as they are expressed through useful service. It frowns upon the idea of too much for the few and too little for the many, but it also discourages all who endeavor to get something for nothing. And it discourages the accumulation of riches by individuals whose greed inspires them to seek more than they can use for their own economic security and to provide opportunities through which others may attain such security. The fellowship has a stupendous task ahead of it. Civilization must live and go forward, not backward, for that is the plan of the Creator of all things. Men must learn to live together as brothers, so that they may walk arm in arm, do the world's work and reap their just reward without poverty, without hardship, without fear or trembling. The members of the fellowship have learned to do this without suffering the loss of any of the joys of living or sacrificing any of their rights as individuals. Nay, they have discovered that the fellowship way is the only path to enduring happiness. I have come to tell you about the fellowship and to place in your hands the Master Key to all riches. My identity will not be revealed, for it would be of no benefit to you. If you wish to speak of me, you may call me the rich man from Happy Valley. Before I describe the 12 great riches, let me reveal to you some of the riches you already possess, riches of which most of you may not be conscious. First, I would have you recognize that each of you is a plural personality. Although you may regard yourself as a single personality, you and every other person consist of at least 2 distinct personalities, and many of you possess more. There is that self which you recognize when you look into a mirror. That is your physical self. But it is only the house in which your other selves live. In that house there are 2 individuals at least who are eternally in conflict with each other. One is a negative sort of person who thinks and moves and lives in an atmosphere of fear and doubt and poverty and ill health. This self expects failure, and seldom is disappointed. It thinks of the circumstances of life, which you do not want but which you seem forced to accept: poverty, greed, superstition, fear, doubt, worry and physical sickness. And one is your other self, a positive sort of person who thinks in terms of opulence, sound health, love, and friendship, personal achievement, creative vision, service to others, and who guides you unerringly to the attainment of all of these blessings. It is this self which alone is capable of recognizing and appropriating the 12 great riches. It is the only self which is capable of receiving the Master Key to Riches. These are not imaginary personalities of which I speak. They are real, for they have been revealed through scientific investigation of irreproachable authenticity. Then you have many other priceless assets of which you may not be aware, hidden riches you have neither recognized nor used. Among these is a modern radio broadcasting and receiving station so powerful that it may pick up and send out the vibrations of thought from or to any part of the world, including the potential capacity to reach out into the cosmos and tune in with the power of infinite intelligence. Your radio station operates automatically and continuously, when you are asleep just as when you are awake. And it is under the control at all times of one or the other of your 2 major personalities, the negative personality or the positive personality. When your negative personality is in control, your radio station picks up only the negative thought vibrations which are being sent out by hundreds of millions of other negative personalities throughout the world. These are accepted, acted upon and translated into their physical equivalent in terms of the circumstances of life which you do not wish. When your positive personality is in control, it picks up only the positive thought vibrations being released by millions of other positive personalities throughout the world, and translates them into their physical equivalent in terms of prosperity, sound health, love, hope, faith, peace of mind and happiness, the values of life for which you and every other normal person are searching. I have come to reveal to you the master key by which you may attain these and many other riches. That mysterious key which unlocks the doors to the solution of all human problems, acquires all riches, and places every individual radio station under the control of one's other self. I am known as the rich man from Happy Valley because I have come into possession of the master key to riches. The nature of my riches I shall presently reveal to you. But first let me tell you that I was not born to riches. I was born in poverty and illiteracy. My formal education has been limited to the knowledge available through a country grade school. And the entire universe, as far as I was concerned, extended no further than the boundary lines of the backwoods county into which I was born. Then came a great awakening. Love came into my heart, and with it the influence of the greatest person I shall ever hope to know. She became my wife and guide, for she came from the outer world, that world I had not suspected to exist. She was a woman of culture and education. From her I learned some of the secrets of biology, and chemistry, and astronomy, and physics. She reached deeply into my soul and uncovered that other self of which I had no knowledge. Step by step, patiently and with love, she lifted me into a higher and yet higher plane of understanding, until at long last I was prepared to receive the great master key to riches, the gift which I shall share with you in the hope that you may become as rich as I. With that blessing came also a responsibility consisting of an obligation to reveal the secrets of the great master key to as many of you as may. Prepare yourselves to receive it. But let me here warn you that the master key may be retained only by those who accept the obligation to share it with others. No man may use it selfishly, for his personal aggrandizement alone. I shall reveal to you the means by which you may share the blessings of the master key, but the responsibility of sharing must become your own. The founders of the Rotary Club movement must have recognized the benefits of sharing, for they adopted as their motto, "He profits most who serves best." And every close observer must have recognized that all individual successes which endure have had their beginning through the beneficent influence of some other individual, through some form of sharing. My great opportunity consisted in the willingness of my wife to share with me the knowledge which she had acquired, plus the knowledge I gained from the principles which placed the master key within my reach. Your opportunity may well consist in my willingness to share this knowledge with you. But I have not come to give you material riches alone. I have come to share with you the knowledge by which you may acquire riches, all riches, through the expression of your own personal initiative. That is the greatest of all gifts. And it is the only kind of gift that anyone who is blessed with the advantages of a great nation like ours should expect. For here we have every potential form of riches available to mankind. We have them in great abundance. So I assume that you too wish to become rich. Let us become partners in the attainment of your desire, for I have found the way to all riches. Therefore I am prepared to serve as your guide. I sought the path to riches the hard way before I learned that there is a short and dependable path I could have followed had I been guided as I hope to guide you. Before we begin our journey to the land of riches, let us take inventory so that we may know the true nature of riches. Yes, let us be prepared to recognize riches when we come within their reach. Some believe that riches consist in money alone. But enduring riches, in the broader sense, consist in many other values than those of material things, and may I add that without these other intangible values the possession of money will not bring the happiness which some believe it will provide. When I speak of riches, I have in mind the greater riches whose possessors have made life pay off on their own terms, the terms of full and complete happiness. I call these the 12 riches of life. And I sincerely wish to share them with all of you who are prepared to receive them, in whole or in part. You may wonder about my willingness to share, so I shall tell you that the master key to riches enables its possessors to add to their own store of riches everything of value which they share with others. This is one of the strangest facts of life, but it is a fact which each of you must recognize and respect if you hope to become as rich as I. Now let us pass on to the description. Chapter 2. The 12 Riches of Life. The greatest of all riches is 1. A positive mental attitude. All riches, of whatsoever nature, begin as a state of mind, and let us remember that a state of mind is the one and only thing over which any person has complete, unchallenged right of control. It is highly significant that the Creator provided man with control over nothing except the power to shape his own thoughts and the privilege of fitting them to any pattern of his choice. Mental attitude is important because it converts the brain into the equivalent of an electromagnet which attracts the counterpart of one's dominating thoughts, aims and purposes. It also attracts the counterpart of one's fears, worries, and doubts. A positive mental attitude is the starting point of all riches, whether they be riches of a material nature or intangible riches. It attracts the riches of true friendship, and the riches one finds in the hope of future achievement. It provides the riches one may find in nature's handiwork, as it exists in the moonlit nights, in the stars that float out there in the heavens, in the beautiful landscapes and in distant horizons. And the riches to be found in the labor of one's choice, where expression may be given to the highest plane of man's soul. And the riches of harmony in home relationships, where all members of the family work together in a spirit of friendly cooperation. And the riches of sound physical health, which is the treasure of those who have learned to balance work with play, worship with love, and who have learned the wisdom of eating to live rather than of living to eat. And the riches of freedom from fear. And the riches of enthusiasm, both active and passive. And the riches of song and laughter, both of which indicate states of mind. And the riches of self-discipline, through which one may have the joy of knowing that the mind can and will serve any desired end if one will take possession and command it through definiteness of purpose. And the riches of play, through which one may lay aside all of the burdens of life and become as a little child again. And the riches of discovery of one's other self, that self which knows no such reality as permanent failure. And the riches of faith in infinite intelligence, of which every individual mind is a minute projection. And the riches of meditation, the connecting link by which anyone may draw upon the great universal supply of infinite intelligence at will. Yes, these and all other riches begin with a positive mental attitude. Therefore, it is but little cause for wonder that a positive mental attitude takes the first place in the list of the 12 riches. 2. Sound physical health. Sound health begins with a health consciousness, produced by a mind which thinks in terms of health and not in terms of illness, plus temperance of habits in eating and properly balanced physical activities. 3. Harmony in human relationships. Harmony with others begins with one's self, for it is true, as Shakespeare said, there are benefits available to those who comply with his admonition. To thine own self be true, and it must follow, as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man. 4. Freedom from fear. No man who fears anything is a free man. Fear is a harbinger of evil, and wherever it appears one may find a cause which must be eliminated before he may become rich in the fuller sense. The 7 basic fears which appear most often in the minds of men are: 1. The fear of poverty, 2. The fear of criticism, 3. The fear of ill health, 4. The fear of loss of love, 5. The fear of the loss of liberty, 6. The fear of old age, 7. The fear of death, 5. The hope of achievement. The greatest of all forms of happiness comes as the result of hope of achievement of some yet unattained desire, and poor beyond description is the person who cannot look to the future with hope that he will become the person he would like to be, or with the belief that he will attain the objective he has failed to reach in the past. 6. The capacity for faith. Faith is the connecting link between the conscious mind of man and the great universal reservoir of infinite intelligence. It is the fertile soil of the garden of the human mind wherein may be produced all of the riches of life. It is the eternal elixir which gives creative power and action to the impulses of thought. Faith is the basis of all so-called miracles, and of many mysteries which cannot be explained by the rules of logic or science. Faith is the spiritual chemical which, when it is mixed with prayer, gives one direct and immediate connection with infinite intelligence. Faith is the power which transmutes the ordinary energies of thought into their spiritual equivalent. And it is the only power through which the cosmic force of infinite intelligence may be appropriated to the uses of man. 7. Willingness to share one's blessings. He who has not learned the blessed art of sharing has not learned the true path to happiness, for happiness comes only by sharing. And let it be forever remembered that all riches may be embellished and multiplied by the simple process of sharing them where they may serve others. And let it be also remembered that the space one occupies in the hearts of his fellow men is determined precisely by the service he renders through some form of sharing his blessings. Riches which are not shared, whether they be material riches or the intangibles, wither and die like the rose on a severed stem, for it is one of nature's first laws that inaction and disuse lead to decay and death, and this law applies to the material possessions of men just as it applies to the living cells of every physical body. 8. A labor of love. There can be no richer man than he who has found a labor of love and who is busily engaged in performing it, for labor is the highest form of human expression of desire. Labor is the liaison between the demand and the supply of all human needs, the forerunner of all human progress, the medium by which the imagination of man is given the wings of action. And all labor of love is sanctified because it brings the joy of self-expression to him who performs it. 9. An open mind on all subjects. Tolerance, which is among the higher attributes of culture, is expressed only by the person who holds an open mind on all subjects at all times. And it is only the man with an open mind who becomes truly educated and who is thus prepared to avail himself of the greater riches of life. 10. Self-discipline. The man who is not the master of himself may never become the master of anything. He who is the master of self may become the master of his own earthly destiny, the master of his fate, the captain of his soul. And the highest form of self-discipline consists in the expression of humility of the heart when one has attained great riches or has been overtaken by that which is commonly called success. 11. The capacity to understand people. The man who is rich in the understanding of people always recognizes that all people are fundamentally alike in that they have evolved from the same stem, that all human activities are inspired by one or more of the 9 basic motives of life, viz. 1. The emotion of love. 2. The emotion of sex. 3. The desire for material gain. 4. The desire for self-preservation. 5. The desire for freedom of body and mind. 6. The desire for self-expression. 7. The desire for perpetuation of life after death. 8. The emotion of anger. 9. The emotion of fear. And the man who would understand others must first understand himself. The capacity to understand others eliminates many of the common causes of friction among men. It is the foundation of all friendship. It is the basis of all harmony and cooperation among men. It is the fundamental of major importance in all leadership which calls for friendly cooperation. And some believe that it is an approach of major importance to the understanding of the Creator of all things. 12. Economic security. The last, though not least in importance, is the tangible portion of the 12 riches. Economic security is not attained by the possession of money alone. It is attained by the service one renders, for useful service may be converted into all forms of human needs, with or without the use of money. Henry Ford has economic security, not because he controls a vast fortune of money, but for the better reason that he provides profitable employment for millions of men and women, and also dependable transportation by automobile for still greater numbers of people. The service he renders has attracted the money he controls, and it is in this manner that all enduring economic security must be attained. Presently I shall acquaint you with the principles by which money and all other forms of riches may be obtained, but first you must be prepared to make application of these principles. Your mind must be conditioned for the acceptance of riches just as the soil of the earth must be prepared for the planting of seeds. When one is ready for a thing it is sure to appear. This does not mean that the things one may need will appear without a cause, for there is a vast difference between one's needs and one's readiness to receive. To miss this distinction is to miss the major benefits which I shall endeavor to convey. So be patient and let me lead you into readiness to receive the riches which you desire. I shall have to lead my way. My way will seem strange to you at first, but you should not become discouraged on this account, for all new ideas seem strange. If you doubt that my way is practical, take courage from the fact that it has brought me riches in abundance. Human progress always has been slow because people are reluctant to accept new ideas. When Samuel Morse announced his system for communication by telegraph, the world scoffed at him. His system was unorthodox. It was new. Therefore it was subject to suspicion and doubt. And the world scoffed at Marconi when he announced the perfection of an improvement over Morse's system, a system of communication by wireless. Thomas A. Edison came in for ridicule when he announced his perfection of the incandescent electric light bulb, and Henry Ford met with the same experience when he offered the world a self-propelled vehicle to take the place of the horse and buggy. When Wilbur and Orville Wright announced the perfection of a practical flying machine, the world was so little impressed that the newspaper men refused to witness a demonstration of the machine. Then came the discovery of the modern radio, one of the miracles of human ingenuity which was destined to make the whole world akin. The unprepared minds accepted it as a toy to amuse children, but nothing more. I mention these facts as a reminder to you, who are seeking riches by a new way, that you be not discouraged because of the newness of the way. Follow through with me, appropriate my philosophy, and be assured that it will work for you as it has worked for me. By serving as your guide to riches, I shall receive my compensation for my efforts in exact proportion to the benefits you receive. The eternal law of compensation ensures this. My compensation may not come directly from you who appropriate my philosophy, but come it will in one form or another, for it is a part of the great cosmic plan that no useful service shall be rendered by anyone without a just compensation. Do the thing, said Emerson, and you shall have the power. Aside from the consideration of what I shall receive for my endeavor to serve you, there is the question of an obligation which I owe the world in return for the blessings it has bestowed upon me. I did not acquire my riches without the aid of many others. I have observed that all who acquire enduring riches have ascended the ladder of opulence with two outstretched hands, one extended upward to receive the help of others who have reached the peak, and the other extended downward to aid those who are still climbing. And here let me admonish you who are on the path to riches that you too must proceed with outstretched hands, to give and to receive aid, for it is a well-known fact that no man may attain enduring success or acquire enduring riches without aiding others who are seeking these desirable ends. To get one must first give. I have brought this message in order that I may give. And now that we know what are the real riches of life, I shall reveal to you the next step which you must take in the process of conditioning your mind to receive riches. I have acknowledged that my riches came through the aid of others. Some of these have been men well known to all who will hear my story. The men who have served as leaders in preparing the way for the rest of us, under that which we call the American way of life. Some have been strangers whose names you will not recognize. Among these strangers are 8 of my friends who have done most for me in preparing my mind for the acceptance of riches. I call them the 8 princes. They serve me when I am awake, and they serve me while I sleep. Although I have never met the princes face to face, as I have met the others who have aided me, they have stood watch over my riches, they have protected me against fear and envy and greed and doubt and indecision and procrastination. They have inspired me to move on my own personal initiative, have kept my imagination active, and have given me definiteness of purpose and the faith to ensure its fulfillment. They have been the real conditioners of my mind, the builders of my positive mental attitude. And now may I commend them to you so that they may render you a similar service? Chapter 3. The 8 Princes. The princes serve me through a technique that is simple and adaptable. Every night, as the last order of the day's activities, the princes and I have a round table session, the major purpose of which is to permit me to express my gratitude for the service they have rendered me during the day. The conference proceeds precisely as it would if the princes were revealed to me in the flesh, but of course they exist on a higher plane than the physical, and I contact them through the power of thought. Here you may receive your first test as to your capacity to condition your mind for the acceptance of riches. When the shock comes, just remember what happened when Morse, and Marconi, and Edison, and Ford, and the Wright brothers first announced their perfection of new and better ways of rendering service. It will help you to stand up under the shock. And now let us go into a session with the princes. Gratitude. Today has been beautiful. It has provided me with health of body and mind. It has given me food and clothing. It has brought me another day of opportunity to be of service to others. It has given me peace of mind and freedom from all fear. For these blessings I am grateful to you, my princes of guidance. I am grateful to all of you collectively for having unraveled the tangled skein of my past life, thereby freeing my mind, my body, and my soul from all causes and effects of both fear and strife. Prince of material prosperity, I am grateful to you for having kept my mind attuned to the consciousness of opulence and plenty, and free from the fear of poverty and want. Prince of sound physical health, I am grateful to you for having attuned my mind to the consciousness of sound health, thereby providing the means by which every cell of my body and every physical organ is being adequately supplied with an inflow of cosmic energy sufficient unto its needs, and providing a direct contact with infinite intelligence which is sufficient for the distribution and application of this energy where it is required. Prince of peace of mind, I am grateful to you for having kept my mind free from all inhibitions and self-imposed limitations, thereby providing my body and my mind with complete rest. Prince of hope, I am grateful to you for the fulfillment of today's desires, and for your promise of fulfillment of tomorrow's aims. Prince of faith, I am grateful to you for the guidance which you have given me, for your having inspired me to do that which has been helpful to me, and for turning me back from doing that which had it been done would have proven harmful to me. You have given power to my thoughts, momentum to my deeds, and the wisdom which has enabled me to understand the laws of nature, and the judgment to enable me to adapt myself to them in a spirit of harmony. Prince of love, I am grateful to you for having inspired me to share my riches with all whom I have contacted this day, for having shown me that only that which I give away can I retain as my own. And I am grateful too for the consciousness of love with which you have endowed me, for it has made life sweet and all my relationships with others pleasant. Prince of romance, I am grateful to you for having inspired me with the spirit of youth despite the passing of the years. Prince of overall wisdom, my eternal gratitude to you for having transmuted into an enduring asset of priceless value all of my past failures, defeats, errors of judgment and of deed, all fears, mistakes, disappointments and adversities of every nature, the asset consisting of my willingness and ability to inspire others to take possession of their own minds and to use their mind power for the attainment of the riches of life, thus providing me with the privilege of sharing all of my blessings with those who are ready to receive them, and thereby enriching and multiplying my own blessings by the scope of their benefit to others. My gratitude to you also for revealing to me the truth that no human experience need become a liability, that all experiences may be transmuted into useful service, that the power of thought is the only power over which I have complete control, that the power of thought may be translated into happiness at will, that there are no limitations to my power of thought save only those which I set up in my own mind. My greatest asset consists in my good fortune in having recognized the existence of the 8 princes, for it is they who conditioned my mind to receive the benefits of the 12 riches. It is the habit of daily communication with the princes which ensures me the endurance of these riches, let the circumstances of life be whatever they may. The princes serve as the medium through which I keep my mind fixed upon the things I desire and off of the things I do not desire. They serve as a dependable fetish, a rosary of power, through which I may draw at will upon the powers of thought, with each hour a pearl, each pearl a blessing. They provide me with continuous immunity against all forms of negative mental attitude, thus they destroy both the seed of negative thought and the germination of that seed in the soil of my mind. They help me to keep my mind fixed upon my major purpose in life, and to give the fullest expression to the attainment of that purpose. They keep me at peace with myself, at peace with the world, and in harmony with my own conscience. They aid me in closing the doors of my mind to all unpleasant thoughts of past failures and defeats. Nay, they aid me in converting all of my past liabilities into assets of priceless value. The princes have revealed to me the existence of that other self which thinks, moves, plans, desires and acts by the impetus of a power which recognizes no such reality as an impossibility. And they have proved, times without number, that every adversity carries with it the seed of an equivalent benefit. So, when adversity overtakes me, as it overtakes everyone, I am not awed by it, but I begin immediately to search for that seed of an equivalent benefit, and to germinate it into a full-blown flower of opportunity. The princes have given me mastery over my most formidable adversary, myself. They have shown me what is good for my body and soul, and they have led me inevitably to the source and supply of all good. They have taught me the truth that happiness consists not in the possession of things, but in the privilege of self-expression through the use of material things. And they have taught me that it is more blessed to render useful service than to accept the service of others. My daily conference with the princes is regarded as a profound ceremony, and my expression of gratitude for the service they render me is offered as thanks. Observe that I ask for nothing from the princes, but I devote the entire ceremony to an expression of gratitude for the riches they have already bestowed upon me. The princes know of my needs and supply them. Yes, they supply all of my needs in overabundance. The princes have taught me to think in terms of that which I can give, and to forget about that which I desire to get in return. Thus they have taught me the proper approach to the impersonal way of life, that way of life which reveals to one the powers which come from within, and which may be drawn upon at will for the solution of all personal problems and for the attainment of all necessary material things. They have taught me to be still and to listen from within. They have given me the faith to enable me to override my reason and to accept guidance from within, with full confidence that the small still voice which speaks from within is superior to my own powers of reason. The princes have thus bestowed upon me the master key which opens the gates to the great estate of Happy Valley, and it is my desire to share this estate with all who will condition their minds to accept as much of it as they can use beneficially. My creed of life was inspired by the princes. Let me share it with you, so that you may adopt it as your creed. A happy man's creed. I have found happiness by helping others to find it. I have sound physical health because I live temperately in all things, and eat only the foods which nature requires for body maintenance. I am free from fear in all of its forms. I hate no man, envy no man, but love all mankind. I am engaged in a labor of love with which I mix play generously. Therefore I never grow tired. I give thanks daily, not for more riches, but for wisdom with which to recognize, embrace, and properly use the great abundance of riches I now have at my command. I speak no name save only to honor it. I ask no favors of anyone except the privilege of sharing my riches with all who will receive them. I am on good terms with my conscience. Therefore it guides me correctly in all that I do. I have no enemies because I injure no man for any cause, but I benefit all with whom I come into contact by teaching them the way to enduring riches. I have more material wealth than I need because I am free from greed, and covet only the material things I can use while I live. I own the estate of Happy Valley, which is not taxable because it exists mainly in my own mind in intangible riches which cannot be assessed or appropriated except by those who adopt my way of life. I created this vast estate by observing nature's laws and adapting my habits to conform therewith. Happy Valley is a large estate. It has room for all who will prepare themselves to dwell there. In fact, it is precisely the size of the entire United States of America. And it is rightly called the richest and the freest nation of the world. Happy Valley Estate is protected by a form of government based on a constitution which the great statesman, William E. Gladstone, described as the most wonderful work ever struck off at a given time by the brain and purpose of man. Gladstone was right. The Constitution of the United States guarantees every person the right to live in Happy Valley, and the privilege of acquiring riches in whatever form and quantity one may desire. It provides everyone with a fitting background for the expression of personal initiative. It inspires men to acquire riches and protects them in the possession of their riches. It provides every conceivable opportunity for men to use their riches for the good of themselves and their fellow men, and this provision has given the people the great American way of life, the major portion of which consists in the American system of free enterprise, a system so flexible that it belongs to the people, provides employment at high wages for millions of men and women, and supports every profession, every trade, and provides most of the taxes for the support of the government. The American system of free enterprise is the great medium of exchange through which the people market their talents in return for economic security, and it has been so designed as to inspire men to develop their talents by the fullest and the freest expression of their own personal initiative. The American system of free enterprise has been set to the pattern of the American Constitution. The two parallel one another so nearly that injury to one means injury to both. The Constitution stipulates the rights of the people. The system of free enterprise provides the major portion of the means by which these rights may be translated into money and transportation and communication, and into all of the material things that have made the American standard of living the highest man has yet evolved. I mention these facts because they are directly related to the service rendered me by the 8 princes. Now let us get on with our story by a description of the philosophy one must adopt in order to acquire the 12 riches. I have described a method of preparing the mind to receive riches. But this is only the beginning of the story. I have yet to explain how one may take possession of riches and make the fullest use of them. The story goes back more than a quarter of a century, and has its beginning in the life of Andrew Carnegie, a great philanthropist who was a typical product of the American system of free enterprise. Mr. Carnegie acquired the 12 riches, the financial portion of which was so vast that he did not live long enough to enable him to give it away. So he passed much of it on to men who are still engaged in using it for the benefit of mankind. Mr. Carnegie was also blessed with the services of the 8 princes. The Prince of Overall Wisdom served him so well that he was inspired not only to give away all his material riches, but to provide the people with a complete philosophy of life through which they too might acquire riches. That philosophy consists of 17 principles which conform in every respect to the pattern of the great Constitution of the United States and the American system of free enterprise. Organization of the philosophy required 20 years of labor, in which Mr. Carnegie and more than 500 other great American leaders of industry had a part, each of them having contributed the sum total of all he had learned from a lifetime of practical experience under the American system of free enterprise. Mr. Carnegie explained his reason for having inspired the organization of a philosophy of individual achievement when he said, "I acquired my money through the efforts of other people, and I shall give it back to the people as fast as I can find ways to do so without inspiring the desire for something for nothing. But the major portion of my riches consists in the knowledge with which I acquired both the tangible and the intangible portions of it. Therefore, it is my wish that this knowledge be organized into a philosophy and made available to every person who seeks an opportunity for self-determination under the American form of economics." It was this philosophy which Mr. Carnegie was inspired to give to the people that provided me with the 12 riches and an opportunity to live in Happy Valley. And it is the philosophy which you must adopt and apply if you hope to accept the riches I desire to share with you. Before I describe the principles of this philosophy, I wish to give a brief history of what it has already accomplished for other men throughout more than half the world. It has been translated into 4 of the leading Indian dialects and has been made available to more than 2 million people of India. It has been translated into the Portuguese language for the benefit of the people of Brazil, where it has served more than 1,500,000 people. It has been published in a special edition for distribution throughout the Great British Empire, where it has served more than 2 million people. It has benefited 1 or more people in practically every city, town and village in the United States, numbering in all an estimated 20 million people. And it may well become the means of bringing about a better spirit of friendly cooperation between all the peoples of the world, since it is founded on no creed or brand, but consists of the fundamentals of all enduring success, and all constructive human achievements in every field of. Chapter 4. Definiteness of Purpose. It is impressive to recognize that all of the great leaders, in all walks of life and during all periods of history, have attained their leadership by the application of their abilities behind a definite major purpose. It is no less impressive to observe that those who are classified as failures have no such purpose, but they go around and around, like a ship without a rudder, coming back always empty-handed, to their starting point. Some of these failures begin with a definite major purpose, but they desert that purpose the moment they are overtaken by temporary defeat or strenuous opposition. They give up and quit, not knowing that there is a philosophy of success which is as dependable and as definite as the rules of mathematics, and never suspecting that temporary defeat is but a testing ground which may prove a blessing in disguise if it is not accepted as final. It is one of the great tragedies of civilization that 98 out of every 100 persons go all the way through life without coming within sight of anything that even approximates definiteness of a major purpose. And it was Andrew Carnegie's recognition of this tragedy that inspired him to influence some 500 great American leaders of industry to collaborate in the organization of this philosophy of individual achievement. Mr. Carnegie's first test, which he applied to all of his associate workers who were under consideration for promotion to supervisory positions, was that of determining to what extent they were willing to go the extra mile. His second test was to determine whether or not they had their minds fixed upon a definite goal, including the necessary preparation for the attainment of that goal. When I asked Mr. Carnegie for my first promotion, said Charles M. Schwab, he grinned broadly and replied, "If you have your heart fixed on what you want, there is nothing I can do to stop you from getting it." Mr. Schwab knew what he wanted. It was the biggest job within Carnegie's control. And Mr. Carnegie helped him to get it. One of the strange facts concerning men who move with definiteness of purpose is the readiness with which the world steps aside that they may pass, even coming to their aid in carrying out their aims. The story behind the organization of this philosophy is one with dramatic connotations in connection with the importance that Andrew Carnegie placed upon definiteness of purpose. He had developed his great steel industry and accumulated a huge fortune in money when he turned his interest to the use and the disposition of his fortune. Having recognized that the better portion of his riches consisted in the knowledge with which he had accumulated material riches and in his understanding of human relationships, his major aim in life became that of inspiring someone to organize a philosophy that would convey this knowledge to all who might desire it. He was then well along in years, and he recognized that the job called for the services of a young man who had the time and the inclination to spend 20 years or more in research into the causes of individual achievement. After interviewing more than 250 men whom he suspected might have such ability, he met by mere chance a young man who had been sent by a magazine to interview him for the story of his achievements. Carnegie's keen insight into the characters of men helped him to recognize that this young man might have the qualities for which he had long been searching, so he set up an ingenious plan by which to make a test. He began by giving the young man the story of his achievements. Then he began to suggest to him that the world needed a practical philosophy of individual achievement which would permit the humblest worker to accumulate riches in whatever amount and form he might desire. For 3 days and nights he elaborated upon his idea, describing how one might go about the organization of such a philosophy. When the story was finished, Mr. Carnegie was ready to apply his test, to determine whether or not he had found the man who could be depended upon to carry his idea through to completion. "You now have my idea of a new philosophy," said he, "and I wish to ask you a question in connection with it which I wish you to answer by a simple yes or no. The question is this: if I give you the opportunity to organize the world's first philosophy of individual achievement, and introduce you to men who can and will collaborate with you in the work of organization, do you wish the opportunity, and will you follow through with it to completion if it is given to you? The young man cleared his throat, stammered for a few seconds, then replied in a brief sentence that was destined to provide him with an opportunity to project his influence for good throughout the world. Yes, he exclaimed, I will not only undertake the job, but I will finish it. That was definite. It was the one thing Mr. Carnegie was searching for. Definiteness of purpose. Many years later this young man learned that Mr. Carnegie had held a stopwatch in his hand when he asked that question, and had allowed exactly 60 seconds for an answer. If the answer had required more time, the opportunity would have been withheld. His answer had actually required 29 seconds. And the reason for the timing was explained by Mr. Carnegie. It has been my experience, said he, that a man who cannot reach a decision promptly, once he has all of the necessary facts for decision at hand, cannot be depended upon to carry through any decision he may make. I have also discovered that men who reach decisions promptly usually have the capacity to move with definiteness of purpose in other circumstances. The first hurdle of Mr. Carnegie's test had been covered with flying colors, but there was still another that followed. Very well, said Carnegie, you have one of the two important qualities that will be needed by the man who organizes the philosophy I have described. Now I shall learn whether or not you have the second. If I give you the opportunity to organize the philosophy, are you willing to devote 20 years of your time to research into the causes of success and failure, without pay, earning your own living as you go along? That question was a shock to the man chosen by Mr. Carnegie for so important a job, for he had naturally suspected that he would be subsidized from Mr. Carnegie's huge fortune. However, he recovered quickly from the shock by asking Mr. Carnegie why he was unwilling to provide the money for so important an assignment. It is not unwillingness to supply the money, Mr. Carnegie replied, but it is my desire to know if you have in you a natural capacity for willingness to go the extra mile by rendering service before trying to collect pay for it. Then he went on to explain that the more successful men in all walks of life were, and had always been, men who followed the habit of rendering more service than that for which they were paid. He also called attention to the fact that subsidies of money, whether they be made to individuals or to groups of individuals, often do more injury than good. And he reminded the young man that he had been given an opportunity which had been withheld from more than 250 other men, some of whom were much older and more experienced than he, and finished by saying, if you make the most of the opportunity one have offered you, it is conceivable that you may develop it into riches so fabulous in nature as to dwarf my material wealth by comparison, for that opportunity provides the way for you to penetrate the keenest minds of this nation, to profit by the experiences of our greatest American leaders of industry, and it might well enable you to project your influence for good throughout the civilized world, thereby enriching those who are not yet born. The opportunity was embraced. The Carnegie tests had found the man for whom he had been so long searching, and the man had received his first lesson on definiteness of purpose and a willingness to go the extra mile. 20 years later, almost to the day, the philosophy, which Mr. Carnegie had designated as being the better portion of his riches, was completed and presented to the world in an 8-volume edition. And what of the man who spent 20 years of time without pay? Some ask, what compensation has been received for this labor? A complete answer to this question would be impossible, for the man himself does not know the total value of the benefits received. Moreover, some of these benefits are so flexible in nature that they will continue to aid him the remainder of his life. But, for the satisfaction of those who measure riches in material values alone, it can be stated that one book written by this man, and the result of the knowledge gained from the application of the principle of going the extra mile, has already yielded an estimated profit of upward of $3 million. The actual time spent in writing the book was 4 weeks. Definiteness of purpose and the habit of going the extra mile constitute a force which staggers the imagination of even the most imaginative of people, although these are but 2 of the 17 principles of individual achievement. These 2 principles have been here associated for but one purpose. That is to indicate how the principles of this philosophy are blended together like the links of a chain, and how this combination of principles leads to the development of stupendous power which cannot be attained by the application singly of any one of them. We come now to the analysis of the power of definiteness of purpose and psychological principles from which the power is derived. First premise. The starting point of all individual achievement is the adoption of a definite purpose and a definite plan for its attainment. Second premise. All achievement is the result of a motive or combination of motives, of which there are 9 basic motives which govern all voluntary actions. These motives have been previously described. Third premise. Any dominating idea, plan, or purpose held in the mind, through repetition of thought, and emotionalized with a burning desire for its realization, is taken over by the subconscious section of the mind and acted upon, and it is thus carried through to its logical climax by whatever natural means may be available. Fourth premise. Any dominating desire, plan, or purpose held in the conscious mind and backed by absolute faith in its realization, is taken over and acted upon immediately by the subconscious section of the mind, and there is no known record of this kind of a desire having ever been without fulfillment. Fifth premise. The power of thought is the only thing over which any person has complete, unquestionable control of fact so astounding that it connotes a close relationship between the mind of man and the universal mind of infinite intelligence, the connecting link between the two being faith. Sixth premise. The subconscious portion of the mind is the doorway to infinite intelligence, and it responds to one's demands in exact proportion to the quality of one's faith. The subconscious mind may be reached through faith and given instructions as though it were a person or a complete entity unto itself. Seventh premise. A definite purpose, backed by absolute faith, is a form of wisdom, and wisdom in action produces positive results. The major advantages of definiteness of purpose. Definiteness of purpose develops self-reliance, personal initiative, imagination, enthusiasm, self-discipline, and concentration of effort, and all of these are prerequisites for the attainment of material success. It induces one to budget his time and to plan all his day-to-day endeavors, so they lead toward the attainment of his major purpose in life. It makes one more alert in the recognition of opportunities related to the object of one's major purpose, and it inspires the necessary courage to act upon those opportunities when they appear. It inspires the cooperation of other people. It prepares the way for the full exercise of that state of mind known as faith, by making the mind positive and freeing it from the limitations of fear and doubt and indecision. It provides one with a success consciousness, without which no one may attain enduring success in any calling. It destroys the destructive habit of procrastination. Lastly, it leads directly to the development and the continuous maintenance of the first of the 12 riches, a positive mental attitude. These are the major characteristics of definiteness of purpose. Although it has many other qualities and usages, and it is directly related to each of the 12 riches because they are attainable only by singleness of purpose. Compare the principle of definiteness of purpose with the 12 riches, one at a time, and observe how essential it is for the attainment of each. Then take inventory of the men of outstanding achievement which this country has produced, and observe how each of them has emphasized some major purpose as the object of his endeavors. Henry Ford concentrated upon the building of low-priced, dependable automobiles. Thomas A. Edison devoted his efforts entirely to scientific inventions. Andrew Carnegie specialized in the manufacture and sale of steel. F. W. Woolworth centered his attention upon the operation of 5 and 10-cent stores. Philip D. Armour's specialty was that of meat packing and distribution. James J. Hill concentrated on the building and maintenance of a great transcontinental railway system. Alexander Graham Bell majored in scientific research in connection with the development of the modern telephone. Marshall Field operated the world's greatest retail store. Cyrus H. K. Curtis devoted his entire life to the development and publication of the Saturday Evening Post. Jefferson Washington, Lincoln, Patrick Henry, and Thomas Paine devoted the better portion of their lives and their fortunes to a prolonged fight for the freedom of all people. Men with singleness of purpose, each and every one. And the list might be multiplied until it contained the name of every great American leader who has contributed to the establishment of the American way of life as we of today know and benefit by it. How to acquire a definite major purpose. The procedure in the development of a definite major purpose is simple, but important, viz. A. Write out a complete, clear, and definite statement of your major purpose in life, sign it and commit it to memory, then repeat it orally. At least once every day, more often if practicable. Repeat it over and over, thus placing back of your purpose all of your faith in infinite intelligence. B. Write out a clear, definite plan by which you intend to begin the attainment of the object of your definite major purpose. In this plan, state the maximum time allowed for the attainment of your purpose, and describe precisely what you intend to give in return for the realization of your purpose, remembering that there is no such reality as something for nothing, and that everything has a price which must be paid in advance in one form or another. C. Make your plan flexible enough to permit changes at any time you are inspired to do so. Remember that infinite intelligence, which operates in every atom of matter and in every living or inanimate thing, may present you with a plan far superior to any you can create. Therefore be ready at all times to recognize and adopt any superior plan that may be presented to your mind. D. Keep your major purpose and your plans for attaining it strictly to yourself, except insofar as you will receive additional instructions for carrying out your plan, in the description of the mastermind principle, which follows. Do not make the mistake of assuming that because you may not understand these instructions, the principles here described are not sound. Follow the instructions to the letter, follow them in good faith, and remember that by so doing you are duplicating the procedure of many of the greatest leaders this nation has ever produced. The instructions call for no effort that you may not easily put forth. They make no demands upon time or ability with which the average person may not comply. And they are completely in harmony with the philosophy of all true religions. Decide now what you desire from life and what you have to give in return. Decide where you are going and how you are to get there. Then make a start from where you now stand. Make the start with whatever means of attaining your goal that may be at hand. And you will discover that to the extent you make use of these, other and better means will reveal themselves to you. That has been the experience of all men whom the world has recognized as successes. Most of them started with humble beginnings with little more to aid them than a passionate desire to attain a definite goal. There is enduring magic in such a desire. And lastly, remember, the moving finger writes, and, having writ, moves on, nor all thy piety nor wit shall lure it back to cancel half a line, nor all thy tears wash out a word of it. Yesterday has gone forever. Tomorrow will never arrive, but today is. Yesterday's tomorrow within your reach. What are you doing with it? Presently I shall reveal to you a principle which is the keystone to the arch of all great achievements, the principle which has been responsible for our great American way of life, our system of free enterprise, our riches and our freedom. But first let us make sure that you know what it is that you desire of life. Ideas that lead to success begin as definiteness of purpose. It is a well-known fact that ideas are the only assets which have no fixed values. It is equally well known that ideas are the beginning of all achievements. Ideas form the foundation of all fortunes, the starting point of all inventions. They have mastered the air above us and the waters of the oceans around us. They have enabled us to harness and use the energy known as the ether, through which one brain may communicate with another brain through telepathy. All ideas begin as the result of definiteness of purpose. The talking machine was nothing but an abstract idea until Edison organized it through definiteness of purpose, and submitted it to the subconscious portion of his brain, where it was projected into the great reservoir of infinite intelligence, from which a workable plan was flashed back to him. And this workable plan he translated into a machine which worked. The philosophy of individual achievement began as an idea in the mind of Andrew Carnegie. He backed his idea with definiteness of purpose, and now the philosophy is available for the benefit of millions of people throughout the civilized world. Moreover, his idea has more than an average chance of becoming one of the great leavening forces of the world, for it is now being used by an ever increasing multitude of people as a means of guiding them through a world of frenzied hysteria in which the spirit of defeatism threatened, for a time, to bring millions of people to a condition of temporary defeat. The great North American continent known as the New World was discovered and brought under the influence of civilization as the result of an idea which was born in the mind of an humble sailor and backed by definiteness of purpose. And the time is at hand when that idea, born more than 400 years ago, may lift our nation to a position where it will become the last frontier of civilization, the only hope of human liberty for all mankind. Any idea that is held in the mind, emphasized, feared or reverenced, begins at once to clothe itself in the most convenient and appropriate physical form that is available. That which men believe, talk about and fear, whether it be good or bad, has a very definite way of making its appearance in one form or another. Let those who are struggling to free themselves from the limitations of poverty and misery not forget this great truth, for it applies to an individual, just as it does to a nation of people. Self-suggestion, the connecting link between the conscious and the subconscious mind. Let us now turn our attention to the working principle through which thoughts, ideas, plans, hopes, and purposes which are placed in the conscious mind find their way into the subconscious section of the mind, where they are picked up and carried out to their logical conclusion, through a law of nature which I shall describe later. To recognize this principle and understand it is to recognize also the reason why definiteness of purpose is the beginning of all achievements. Transfer of thought from the conscious to the subconscious section of the mind may be hastened by the simple process of stepping up or stimulating the vibrations of thought through faith, fear, or any other highly intensified emotion, such as enthusiasm, a burning desire based on definiteness of purpose. Thoughts backed by faith have precedence over all others in the matter of definiteness and speed with which they are handed over to the subconscious section of the mind and are acted upon. The speed with which the power of faith works has given rise to the belief held by many that certain phenomena are the result of miracles. Psychologists and scientists recognize no such phenomenon as a miracle, claiming as they do that everything which happens is the result of a definite cause, albeit a cause which cannot be explained. Be that as it may, it is a known fact that the person who is capable of freeing his mind from all self-imposed limitations, through the mental attitude known as faith, generally finds the solution to all of his problems, regardless of their nature. Psychologists recognize also that infinite intelligence, while it is not claimed to be an automatic solver of riddles, nevertheless carries out to a logical conclusion any clearly defined idea, aim, purpose, or desire that is submitted to the subconscious section of the mind in a mental attitude of perfect faith. However, infinite intelligence never attempts to modify, change or otherwise alter any thought that is submitted to it, and it has never been known to act upon a mere wish or indefinite idea, thought or purpose. Get this truth well grounded in your mind and you will find yourself in possession of sufficient power to solve your daily problems with much less effort than most people devote to worrying over their problems. So-called hunches often are signals indicating that infinite intelligence is endeavoring to reach and influence the conscious section of the mind, but you will observe that they usually come in response to some idea, plan, purpose or desire, or some fear that has been handed over to the subconscious section of the mind. All hunches should be treated civilly and examined carefully, as they often convey, either in whole or in part, information of the utmost value to the individual who receives them. These hunches often make their appearance many hours, days, or weeks after the thought which inspires them has reached the reservoir of infinite intelligence. Meanwhile, the individual often has forgotten the original thought which inspired them. This is a deep, profound subject about which even the wisest of men know very little. It becomes a self-revealing subject only upon meditation and thought. Understand the principle of mind operation here described and you will have a dependable clue as to why meditation sometimes brings that which one desires, while at other times it brings that which one does not wish. This type of mental attitude is attained only by preparation and self-discipline attained through a formula I shall describe later. It is one of the most profound truths of the world that the affairs of men, whether they are circumstances of mass thought or of individual thought, shape themselves to fit the exact pattern of those thoughts. Successful men become successful only because they acquire the habit of thinking in terms of success. Definiteness of purpose can, and it should, so completely occupy the mind that one has no time or space in the mind for thoughts of failure. Another profound truth consists in the fact that the individual who has been defeated and who recognizes himself as a failure may, by reversing the position of the sails of his mind, convert the winds of adversity into a power of equal volume which will carry him onward to success, just as one ship sails east, the other west, impelled by the self-same blow. It's the set of the sails and not the gales that bids them where to go. To some who pride themselves on being what the world calls cool-headed, practical businessmen, this analysis of the principle of definiteness of purpose may appear to be abstract or impractical. There is a power greater than the power of conscious thought, and often it is not perceptible to the finite mind of man. Acceptance of this truth is essential for the successful culmination of any definite purpose based upon the desire for great achievements. The great philosophers of all ages, from Plato and Socrates on down to Emerson and the moderns, and the great statesmen of our times, from George Washington down to Abraham Lincoln, are known to have turned to the inner self in times of great emergency. We offer no apology for our belief that no great and enduring success has ever been achieved, or ever will be achieved except by those who recognize and use the spiritual powers of the infinite, as they may be sensed and drawn upon through their inner selves. Every circumstance of every man's life is the result of a definite cause. Whether it is a circumstance that brings failure or one that brings success. And most of the circumstances of every man's life are the result of causes over which he has or may have control. This obvious truth gives importance of the first magnitude to the principle of definiteness of purpose. If the circumstances of a man's life are not what he desires, he may change them by changing his mental attitude and forming new and more desirable thought habits. How definiteness of purpose leads to success. Of all the great American industrialists who have contributed to the development of our industrial system, none was more spectacular than the late Walter Chrysler. His story should give hope to every young American who aspires to the attainment of fame or fortune, and it serves as evidence of the power one may gain by moving with definiteness of purpose. Chrysler began as a mechanic in a railroad shop in Salt Lake City, Utah. From his savings he had accumulated a little more than $4,000, which he intended to use as a fund to set himself up in business. Looking around diligently, he decided that the automobile business was a coming industry, so he decided to go into that field. His entry into the business was both dramatic and novel. His first move was one that shocked his friends and astounded his relatives, for it consisted in his investing all of his savings in an automobile. When the car arrived in Salt Lake City, he gave his friends still another shock by proceeding to take it apart, piece by piece, until the parts were scattered all over the shop. Then he began to put the parts together again. He repeated this operation so often that some of his friends thought he had lost his mind. That was because they did not understand his purpose. They saw what he was doing with the automobile, and it looked aimless and without purpose, but what they did not see was the plan which was taking form in Walter Chrysler's mind. He was making his mind automobile conscious, saturating it with definiteness of purpose. He was observing carefully every detail of the car. When he was through with his job of tearing down his automobile and rebuilding it, he knew all of its good points and all of its weak ones. From that experience he began to design automobiles embodying all of the good points of the car he had bought and omitting all of its weaknesses. He did his job so thoroughly that when the Chrysler automobiles began to reach the market, they became the sensation of the entire automobile industry. His rise to fame and fortune was both rapid and definite, because he knew where he was going before he started, and he prepared himself with painstaking accuracy for the journey. Observe these men who move with definiteness of purpose wherever you find them, and you will be impressed by the ease with which they attract the friendly cooperation of others, break down resistance and get that which they seek. Analyze Walter Chrysler accurately and observe how definitely he acquired the 12 riches of life and made the most of them. He began by developing the greatest of all the riches, a positive mental attitude. That provided him with a fertile field in which to plant and germinate the seed of his definite major purpose, the building of fine motor cars. Then, one by one, he acquired other riches, sound physical health, harmony in human relationships, freedom from fear, hope of achievement. The capacity for faith, willingness to share his blessings, a labor of love, an open mind on all subjects, self-discipline, the capacity to understand people. And last, financial security. One of the strangest facts concerning the success of Walter Chrysler consists in the simplicity with which he attained it. He had no appreciable amount of working capital with which to begin. His education was a limited one. He had no wealthy backers to set him up in business. But he did have a practical idea and enough personal initiative to begin. Right where he stood, to develop it. Everything he needed to translate his definite major purpose into reality seemed almost miraculously placed in his hands as fast as he was ready for it, a circumstance which is not uncommon to men who move with definiteness of purpose. When Edward Bok came to the United States, during his early youth, he could not speak our language, he had no money and had to work after school hours to help support his mother and brothers. Early in life he found out what he wanted and made up his mind to get it. First of all, he desired the daughter of Cyrus H.K. Curtis for his wife. Very soon his first desire was attained. The next thing he wanted was to become the editor of the Ladies' Home Journal. In a little while he also had that desire fulfilled. His greatest desire then became his aim, and a very obsessional aim it was to make the Ladies' Home Journal the greatest magazine of its kind in the world. The publishing world is agreed that he attained that aim. Along with his other aims, Edward Bok desired to be recognized as a truly great American citizen, an ambition that was inspired by the vastness of opportunities which his adopted country had provided him. He also attained that aim. Now let me call your attention to one very significant fact. Each of Edward Bok's aims was created by himself, in his own mind, and each was attained by his own efforts on sheer merit. He did not depend upon lucky breaks, did not expect something for nothing, but shaped his own destiny by careful planning based upon definiteness of purpose. And he, like Walter Chrysler, conditioned his mind for success by acquiring all of the 12 riches. Shortly after Think and Grow Rich, a one-volume interpretation of a portion of the Andrew Carnegie philosophy of individual achievement was published, the publisher began to receive telegraphic orders for the book from bookstores in and near Des Moines, Iowa. The orders called for immediate shipment of the book by express. The cause of the sudden demand for the book was a mystery until several weeks later, when the publisher received a letter from Edward P. Chase, a life insurance salesman representing the Sun Life Assurance Company, in which he said, "I am writing to express my grateful appreciation of your book, Think and Grow Rich." I followed its advice to the letter. As a result, I received an idea which resulted in the sale of a $2 million life insurance policy. The largest single sale of its kind ever made in Des Moines. The key sentence in Mr. Chase's letter is in the second sentence. I followed its advice to the letter. He moved on that idea with definiteness of purpose, and it helped him to earn more money in 1 hour than most life insurance men earn in 5 years of continuous effort. In one brief sentence, Mr. Chase told the entire story of a business transaction which lifted him out of the category of ordinary life insurance salesman and made him a member of the coveted $1 million round table. When he went out to sell a $2 million life insurance policy, he took with him a form of definiteness of purpose that was supported by faith. He did not merely read the book, as perhaps several million other men had done, and then lay it aside in an attitude of cynicism or doubt, with the thought that the principles it described might work for others but not for him. He read it with an open mind, in a spirit of expectancy, recognized the power of the ideas it contained, appropriated those ideas, and moved on them with definiteness of purpose. Somewhere in the book, Mr. Chase's mind established contact with the mind of the author of the book, and that contact quickened his own mind so definitely and intensely that an idea was born. The idea was to sell a life insurance policy larger than any he had ever thought of selling. The sale of that policy became his immediate definite major purpose in life. He moved on that purpose without hesitation or delay, and behold, his objective was attained in less than an hour. As Andrew Carnegie once said, the man who is motivated by definiteness of purpose and moves on that purpose with the spiritual forces of his being, may challenge the man of indecision at the post and pass him at the grandstand. It makes no difference whether he is selling life insurance or digging ditches. A definite, potent idea, when it is fresh in one's mind, may so change the biochemistry of that mind that it takes on the spiritual qualities which recognize no such reality as failure or defeat. The major weakness of most men, as Mr. Carnegie so often declared, is that they recognize the obstacles they must surmount without recognizing the spiritual power at their command by which those obstacles may be removed at will. I recall, as though it were only yesterday, the circumstances of my own awakening to the recognition of the spiritual powers available to me. And, strangely enough, that awakening came from the same book that inspired Edward P. Chase to lift himself into the upper brackets of achievement in his chosen profession. My wife brought the book from the public library and asked me to read it. The moment my hands touched the covers, before the book had been opened, I felt a strange thrill of inspiration which caused me to begin then and there to open the book and read it. Before I had finished the first chapter, I recognized that some strange quirk of fate had caused the book to be placed in my hands. I took it to bed with me and read it from cover to cover before I went to sleep. The next morning I arose a new man. I had been literally born again. Indecision and doubt were forever gone. In 6 brief years that idea enabled me to project my influence for the benefit of millions of people throughout a large portion of the world. At long last I had acquired the blessed art of sharing my riches with others. And I had acquired the 12 riches in their fullest and most bountiful form. Moreover, I had discovered my other self, that self I had never known before. I also had discovered the existence of the 8 princes, the servants of that other self, which guide me in all that I do. I was so elated over my changed life that it seemed imperative that I meet the author of the book and thank him in person for my good fortune. Finding him was like searching for the needle in a haystack, for he had retired and was living in seclusion. His publisher could not give me his address, so I traced him from one address to another, until I finally located him, after having crossed the continent 3 times in my search. My urge to meet the author was due mainly to a feeling I had that he had not exhausted his entire knowledge on the subject of individual achievement through the pages of Think and Grow Rich. In this assumption I was correct, for I discovered that he had mentioned only 3 of the 17 principles of individual achievement in this book, that he had written an entirely new course in which the entire philosophy had been presented. Applying the principle of going the extra mile, a principle in which I believe devoutly, I induced the author to permit me to carry out a very important portion of my definite major purpose in life, that of assisting in taking this philosophy to an ailing world at a time when it is most needed. I said to the author, as I now say to you, that I would rather have had the privilege of being the author of that philosophy than to have been President of the United States. And next to that, I would rather have the privilege of helping to take it to the world, than to own all the world's wealth. This privilege has been granted me, and I shall exercise it in a variety of ways. First, I shall make the philosophy available, although in a brief form, through a series of radio programs which will be presented to the people. Next, I shall help to make the philosophy available in printed lessons, which will be distributed to the people through the newsstands and book stores of the country. Then I shall aid in having it interpreted through talking pictures suitable for presentation to the workers in industry, and distributed to them through the cooperation of the management of American industry. In addition to these sources of outlet for the philosophy, I shall aid in the organization of a nationwide series of private study clubs in which the philosophy will be presented by talking pictures and through the printed lessons. It is my purpose to cooperate with the churches of the nation by helping to provide the means by which the philosophy may be made available to their members. I have also arranged with the author of the philosophy to write a book for children, in which the philosophy will be interpreted in terms that will grip their imagination. This book will be distributed through the bookstores and it will be translated into talking pictures for use in the public schools. Beyond this, I hope to make other contributions, as opportunities present themselves, leading to the distribution of this philosophy on a scale so vast that it will become available to every person who is searching for his or her place in the world. Thus do I have the privilege of revealing the inner workings of a mind that has been inspired with a definite major purpose in life, and though the task may seem extensive, let me assure you that my contribution will be truly a labor of love, and my compensation will consist of an ever-increasing reward which is known only to the man who has discovered the blessed privilege of gaining riches by sharing his blessings with others. Riches, the real riches of life, increase in exact proportion to the scope and extent of the benefit they bring to those with whom they are shared. I know this to be true, for I have grown rich by sharing. I have never benefited anyone in any manner whatsoever without having received in return, from one source or another, 10 times as much benefit as I have contributed to others. In sharing my riches with others, I seek no glorification, for my benefactions are made anonymously except in rare instances when my identity must be revealed. Instead of seeking glorification of my name, I prefer to glorify my soul through useful service to others. The riches I give away add to my own estate in Happy Valley. I wish no monuments built to my name after I am gone. I prefer rather to build my own monuments while I live, in the hearts of my fellow men, not monuments to my name, but monuments to the spirit of fellowship which I am endeavoring to promote for the good of mankind. In this spirit I have created the great estate of Happy Valley. In this spirit I shall maintain the estate as long as I live. And this is the spirit which I recommend to you who are seeking the path to Happy Valley. You will find that path most quickly by helping others to find it. One of the strangest of all truths which have been revealed to me is the fact that the surest way to solve one's personal problems is to find someone with a greater problem and help him to solve it, through some method of application of the habit of going the extra mile. This is a simple formula, but it has charm and magic, and it never fails to work. However, you cannot appropriate the formula by the mere acceptance of my testimony as to its soundness. You must adopt it and apply it in your own way. You will then need no testimony as to its soundness. You will find that many opportunities surround you. The destruction wrought by World War II has bewildered and frustrated many millions of people who are now searching for the path to Happy Valley. They need only a spark of human kindness to give them new hope and the courage to carry on. You can supply that spark to those nearest you. By helping others to find the path, you will find it for yourselves. You might begin by organizing a fellowship club among your own neighbors or fellow workers, casting yourself for the role of leader and teacher of the group. Here you will learn another great truth, namely, that the best way to appropriate the principles of the philosophy of individual achievement is by teaching it to others. When a man begins to teach anything, he begins also to learn more about that which he is teaching. You are now a student of this philosophy, but you can become a master of it by teaching it to others. Thus your compensation will be assured you in advance. If you are a worker in industry, here is your big opportunity to find yourself by helping others to adjust their relationships in peace and harmony. For soundness it has never been excelled, for it has been fully verified by the experiences of men in every walk of life. Labor does not need agitators, but it does need peacemakers. It also needs a sound philosophy for the guidance of its following, a philosophy that benefits both the management and the workers. To this end, the principles of this philosophy are perfectly suited. The labor leader who guides his followers by this philosophy will have the confidence of his followers and the fullest cooperation of their employers. Is that not obvious? Is it not sufficient promise of reward to justify the adoption of this philosophy? A labor organization conducted by the principles of this philosophy would benefit everyone whom it affected. Friction would be supplanted by harmony in human relationships. Agitators and exploiters of labor would be automatically eliminated. The funds of the labor organization could be used for the education of its members and not for political intrigues. And there would be more profits for distribution as wages, profits which the management of industry would prefer to give to their workers instead of being forced to use them as a defense fund against the destructive efforts of agitators. There is a need for a fellowship club in every industry. In the larger industries there is room for many such clubs. The membership should consist of both the workers and the management. For here is a common meeting ground based upon principles on which everyone could agree. And agreement here would mean agreement at the workbench or the lathe. I have emphasized this particular field of opportunity because I recognize that the chaos existing in the relationship between the management of industry and the workers constitutes the #1 economic problem of this nation. If you have not already adopted a definite major purpose in life, here is an opportunity for you to do so. You can start right where you are, by helping to teach this philosophy to those who are in need of it. The time has come when it is not only beneficial to the individual to help his neighbor to solve his personal problems, but it is imperative that each of us do so as a means of self-preservation. If your neighbor's house were on fire, you would volunteer to help him put out the fire, even if you were not on friendly terms with him, for common sense would convince you that this would be the means of saving your own house. In recommending harmony between the management of industry and the workers, I am not thinking of the interests of management alone, for I recognize that if this harmony does not prevail, there soon will be neither management nor workers as we know them today. On the other hand, the man with a sound philosophy of life will find himself surrounded with an abundance of opportunities such as did not exist a decade ago. The man who tries to get ahead without a definite major purpose will meet with difficulties far greater than the average man can master. The more lucrative opportunities of the world of today and tomorrow will go to those who prepare themselves for leadership in their chosen calling. And leadership in any field of endeavor requires a foundation of sound philosophy. The days of the hit and miss leadership are gone forever. Skill and technique and human understanding will be required in the changed world we are now approaching. The foremen and supervisors in industry must take on new responsibilities in the future. They must not only be skilled in the mechanics of their jobs, which is so essential for efficient production, but they must be skilled as well in the production of harmony among the workers for whom they are responsible. The youngsters of today will become the leaders of our society tomorrow. What are we going to do about them? This is a problem of the first magnitude, and the major portion of the burden of solving it will fall upon the shoulders of the teachers in the public schools. I mention these obvious facts as evidence that the future holds forth opportunities for useful service such as we have never known before. Opportunities born of necessity in a world which has changed so rapidly that some fail to recognize the scope and the nature of the changes which have taken place. Take inventory, you who are without a definite major purpose, to find out where you fit in this changed world. Prepare yourselves for your new opportunities and make the most of them. If I had the privilege of so doing, I could no doubt choose for you a definite major purpose suited in every way to your qualifications and needs, and I might create for you a simple plan by which you could attain the object of that purpose, but I can serve you more profitably by teaching you how to do this for yourself. Somewhere along the way the idea for which you are searching will reveal itself to you. That has been the experience of most of the students of this philosophy. When the idea comes, you will recognize it, for it should come with such force that you cannot escape it. You may be sure of that, provided you are sincerely searching for it. One of the imponderable features of this philosophy is that it inspires the creation of new ideas, reveals the presence of opportunities for self-advancement which had been previously overlooked, and inspires one to move on his own personal initiative in embracing and making the most of such opportunities. This feature of the philosophy is not the result of chance. It was designed to produce a specific effect, since it is obvious that an opportunity which a man creates for himself, or an idea with which he may be inspired through his own thought, is more beneficial than any he may borrow from others. For the very procedure by which a man creates useful ideas leads him unerringly to the discovery of the source from which he may acquire additional ideas when he needs them. While it is of great benefit to a man to have access to a source from which he may receive the inspiration necessary to create his own ideas, and self-reliance is an asset of priceless value, there may come a time when he will need to draw upon the resources of other minds. And that time is sure to come to those who aspire to leadership in the higher brackets of personal achievement. Presently I shall reveal to you the means by which personal power may be attained, through the consolidation of many minds directed to the achievement of definite ends. It was by this same means that Andrew Carnegie ushered in the great Steel Age and gave America its greatest industry, although he had no capital with which to begin, and very little education. And it was by this means that Thomas A. Edison became the greatest inventor of all times, although he had no personal knowledge of physics, mathematics, chemistry, electronics, or many other scientific subjects, all of which were essential in his work as an inventor. It should give you hopes to know that lack of education, lack of working capital, and lack of technical skill need not discourage you from establishing, as your major goal in life, any purpose you may choose, for this philosophy provides a way by which any goal within reason may be attained by any man of average ability. The one thing it cannot do for you is to choose your goal for you. But, once you have established your own goal, this philosophy can guide you unerringly to its attainment. That is a promise without qualifications. We cannot tell you what to desire, or how much success to hope for, but we can and we shall reveal to you the formula by which successes may be attained. Your major responsibility right now is to find out what you desire in life, where you are going, and what you will do when you get there. This is one responsibility which no one but you can assume, and it is a responsibility 98 out of every 100 people never assume. That is the major reason why only 2 out of every 100 people can be rated as successful. Success begins through definiteness of purpose. If this fact has seemed to be overemphasized, it is because of the common trait of procrastination which influences 98 out of every 100 people to go all the way through life without choosing a definite major purpose. Singleness of purpose is a priceless asset, priceless because so few possess it. Yet it is an asset which one may appropriate on a second's notice. Make up your mind what you desire of life, decide to get just that, without substitutes, and lo, you will have taken possession of one of the most priceless of all assets available to human beings. But your desire must be no mere wish or hope. It must be a burning desire, and it must become so definitely an obsessional desire that you are willing to pay whatever price its attainment may cost. The price may be much or it may be little, but you must condition your mind to pay it, regardless of what the cost may be. The moment you choose your definite major purpose in life, you will observe a strange circumstance, consisting in the fact that ways and means of attaining that purpose will begin immediately to reveal themselves to you. Opportunities you had not expected will be placed in your way. The cooperation of others will become available to you, and friends will appear as if by a stroke of magic. Your fears and doubts will begin to disappear and self-reliance will take their place. This may seem, to the uninitiated, a fantastic promise, but not so to the man who has done away with indecision and has chosen a definite goal in life. I speak not from the observation of other men alone, but from my own personal experience. I have transformed myself from a dismal failure to an outstanding success, and I have therefore earned the right to give you this assurance of what you may expect if you follow the road map provided by this philosophy. When you come to that inspiring moment when you choose your definite major purpose, do not become discouraged if relatives or friends who are nearest you call you a dreamer. Just remember that the dreamers have been the forerunners of all human progress. They have given us the great American system of free enterprise. They have given us our greatest asset, the privilege of enjoying personal liberty and the right to dream when we choose. They have given us the greatest air force and the greatest navy in the world. They have pushed back the frontiers of civilization and have made of the American way of life a glorious pattern which is the envy of the rest of the world. Christopher Columbus dreamed of an unknown world, set sail on an uncharted ocean and discovered a new world. Copernicus dreamed of an unseen world, and with the aid of an improvised telescope revealed it, thus setting civilization ahead 10,000 years in the mastery of fear and superstition. Thomas A. Edison dreamed of a lamp that could be lighted by electricity. Went to work on his dream, and despite the fact that he met with 10,000 failures, he gave the world that lamp. So, let no one discourage you from dreaming, but make sure you back your dreams with action based on definiteness of purpose. Your chances for success are as great as have been those of anyone who has preceded you. In many ways your chances are greater, for you now have access to the knowledge of the principles of individual achievement which millions of successful men of the past had to acquire the long and hard way. Wise men share most of their riches generously. They share their confidences sparingly, and take great care not to misplace them. And when they talk of their aims and plans, they generally do it by action rather than by words. Wise men listen much and speak with caution, for they know that a man may always be in the way of learning something of value when he is listening, while he may learn nothing when he is speaking, unless it be the folly of talking too much. There is always an appropriate time for one to speak and an appropriate time for one to remain silent. Wise men, when in doubt as to whether to speak or remain silent, give themselves the benefit of the doubt by keeping quiet. Exchange of thought, through intercourse of speech, is one of the more important means by which men gather useful knowledge, create plans for the attainment of their definite major purpose, and find ways and means of carrying out these plans. And the round table discussions are an outstanding feature among men in the higher brackets of achievement. But these are far different from the idle discussions in which some men open their minds to anyone who wishes to enter. Presently I shall reveal to you a safe method by which you may exchange thoughts with other men, with a reasonable assurance that you will get as much as you give, or more. By this method you may not only speak freely of your most cherished plans, but it will be profitable for you to so do. I shall reveal to you an important intersection at which you may leave the bypath you are following on your way to Happy Valley, and get on the main highway. The way will be clearly marked so that you shall not miss it. This intersection of which I speak is the point at which men in the higher brackets of achievement come to a parting of the ways with. Chapter 5. The habit of going the extra mile. An important principle of success in all walks of life and in all occupations is a willingness to go the extra mile, which means the rendering of more and better service than that for which one is paid, and giving it in a positive mental attitude. Search wherever you will for a single sound argument against this principle, and you will not find it, nor will you find a single instance of enduring success which was not attained in part by its application. The principle is not the creation of man. It is a part of nature's handiwork, for it is obvious that every living creature below the intelligence of man is forced to apply the principle in order to survive. Man may disregard the principle if he chooses, but he cannot do so and at the same time enjoy the fruits of enduring success. Observe how nature applies this principle in the production of food that grows from the soil, where the farmer is forced to go the extra mile by clearing the land, plowing it, and planting the seed at the right time of the year, for none of which he receives any pay in advance. But observe that if he does his work in harmony with nature's laws, and performs the necessary amount of labor, nature takes over the job where the farmer's labor ends, germinates the seed he plants and develops it into a crop of food. And observe thoughtfully this significant fact: for every grain of wheat or corn he plants in the soil, nature yields him perhaps 100 grains, thus enabling him to benefit by the law of increasing returns. Nature goes the extra mile by producing enough of everything for her needs, together with a surplus for emergencies and waste. For example, the fruit on the trees, the bloom from which the fruit is grown, frogs in the pond and fish in the seas. Nature goes the extra mile by producing enough of every living thing to ensure the perpetuation of the species, allowing for emergencies of every kind. If this were not true, the species of all living things would soon vanish. Some believe that the beasts of the jungle and the birds of the air live without labor, but thoughtful men know that this is not true. It is true that nature provides the sources of supply of food for every living thing, but every creature must labor before it may partake of that food. Thus we see that nature discourages the habit which some men have acquired of trying to get something for nothing. The advantages of the habit of going the extra mile are definite and understandable. Let us examine some of them and be convinced. The habit brings the individual to the favorable attention of those who can and will provide opportunities for self-advancement. It tends to make one indispensable in many different human relationships, and it therefore enables him to command more than average compensation for personal services. It leads to mental growth and to physical skill and perfection in many forms of endeavor, thereby adding to one's earning capacity. It protects one against the loss of employment when employment is scarce, and places him in a position to command the choicest of jobs. It enables one to profit by the law of contrast, since the majority of people do not practice the habit. It leads to the development of a positive, pleasing mental attitude, which is essential for enduring success. It tends to develop a keen, alert imagination because it is a habit which inspires one continuously to seek new and better ways of rendering service. It develops the important quality of personal initiative. It develops self-reliance and courage. It serves to build the confidence of others in one's integrity. It aids in the mastery of the destructive habit of procrastination. It develops definiteness of purpose, ensuring one against the common habit of aimlessness. There is still another, and a greater reason for following the habit of going the extra mile. It gives one the only logical reason for asking for increased compensation. If a man performs no more service than that for which he is being paid, then obviously he is receiving all the pay to which he is entitled. He must render as much service as that for which he is being paid, in order to hold his job, or to maintain his source of income, regardless of how he earns it. But he has the privilege always of rendering an overplus of service as a means of accumulating a reserve credit of goodwill, and to provide a just reason for demanding more pay, a better position, or both. Every position based upon a salary or wages provides one with an opportunity to advance himself by the application of this principle, and it is important to note that the great American system of free enterprise is operated on the basis of providing every worker in industry with a proper incentive to apply the principle. Any practice or philosophy which deprives a man of the privilege of going the extra mile is unsound and doomed to failure, for it is obvious that this principle is the stepping stone of major importance by which an individual may receive compensation for extraordinary skill, experience and education, and it is the one principle which provides the way of self-determination, regardless of what occupation, profession or calling the individual may be engaged in. In America, under our system of free enterprise, anyone may earn a living without the habit of going the extra mile. And many do just that, but economic security and the luxuries available under the great American way of life are available only to the individual who makes this principle a part of his philosophy of life and lives by it as a matter of daily habit. Every known rule of logic and common sense forces one to accept this as true. And even a cursory analysis of men in the higher brackets of success will prove that it is true. The leaders of the American system of free enterprise are adamant in their demands that every worker be protected in his right to adopt and apply the principle of going the extra mile, for they recognize from their own experience that the future leadership in industry is dependent upon men who are willing to follow this principle. It is a well-known fact that Andrew Carnegie developed more successful leaders of industry than has any other great American industrialist. Most of them came up from the ranks of ordinary day laborers, and many of them accumulated personal fortunes of vast amounts, more than they could have acquired without the guidance of Mr. Carnegie. The first test that Mr. Carnegie applied to any worker whom he desired to promote was that of determining to what extent the worker was willing to go the extra mile. It was this test that led him to the discovery of Charles M. Schwab. When Mr. Schwab first came to Mr. Carnegie's attention, he was working as a day laborer in one of the steel master's plants. Close observation revealed that Mr. Schwab always performed more and better service than that for which he was paid. Moreover, he performed it in a pleasing mental attitude which made him popular among his fellow workers. He was promoted from one job to another until at long last he was made president of the great United States Steel Corporation, at a salary of $75,000 a year. Not through all the ingenuity of man, or all the schemes that men resort to in order to get something for nothing, could Charles M. Schwab, the day laborer, have earned as much as $75,000 during his entire lifetime if he had not willingly adopted and followed the habit of going the extra mile. On some occasions Mr. Carnegie not only paid Mr. Schwab's salary, which was generous enough, but he gave him as much as $1 million as a bonus in addition to his regular salary. When Mr. Carnegie was asked why he gave Mr. Schwab a bonus so much greater than his salary, he replied in words that every worker, regardless of his job or wages, might well ponder. "I gave him his salary for the work he actually performed," said Mr. Carnegie, and the bonus for his willingness to go the extra mile, thus setting a fine example for his fellow workers. Think of that. A salary of $75,000 a year, paid to a man who started as a day laborer, and a bonus of more than 10 times that amount for a good disposition expressed by a willingness to do more than he was paid for. Verily it pays to go the extra mile, for every time an individual does so he places someone else under obligation to him. Enough of such obligations make a Charles M. Schwab, an Andrew Carnegie, a Henry Ford, or a Thomas A. Edison. No one is compelled to follow the habit of going the extra mile. And seldom is anyone ever requested to render more service than that for which he is paid. Therefore, if the habit is followed it must be adopted on one's own initiative. But, the Constitution of the United States, as it was originally written, guarantees every man this privilege, and the American system of free enterprise provides rewards and bonuses for those who follow this habit, and makes it impossible for a man to adopt the habit without receiving appropriate compensation. The compensation may come in many different forms. Increased pay is a certainty. Voluntary promotions are inevitable. Favorable working conditions and pleasant human relationships are sure. And these lead to economic security which a man may attain on his own merits. There is still another benefit to be gained by the man who follows the habit of going the extra mile. It keeps him on good terms with his own conscience and serves as a stimulant to his own soul. Therefore it is a builder of sound character which has no equal in any other human habit. You who have young boys and girls growing into adulthood might well remember this for their sake. Teach a child the benefits of rendering more service and better service than that which is customary, and you will have made contributions of character to that child which will serve him or her all through life. The philosophy of Andrew Carnegie is essentially a philosophy of economics. But it is more than that. It is also a philosophy of ethics in human relationships. It leads to harmony and understanding and sympathy for the weak and the unfortunate. It teaches one how to become his brother's keeper, and at the same time rewards him for so doing. The habit of going the extra mile is only one of the 17 principles of the philosophy which Mr. Carnegie has recommended to those who are seeking riches, but let us consider how directly it is related to each of the 12 riches. First, this habit is inseparably related to the development of the most important of the 12 riches, a positive mental attitude. When a man becomes the master of his own emotions, and learns the blessed art of self-expression through useful service to others, he has gone far toward the development of a positive mental attitude. With a positive mental attitude as a builder of the proper thought pattern, the remainder of the 12 riches fall into that pattern as naturally as night follows day, and as inevitably. Recognize this truth and you will understand why the habit of going the extra mile provides benefits far beyond the mere accumulation of material riches. You will understand also why this principle has been given first place in Mr. Carnegie's philosophy of individual achievement. Let us now observe that the admonition to render more service and better service than that for which one is paid, is paradoxical because it is impossible for anyone to render such service without receiving appropriate compensation. The compensation may come in many forms and from many different sources, some of them strange and unexpected sources, but come it will. The worker who renders this type of service may not always receive appropriate compensation from the person to whom he renders the service. But this habit will attract to him many opportunities for self-advancement, among them new and more favorable sources of employment. Thus his pay will come to him indirectly. Ralph Waldo Emerson had this truth in mind when he said, in his essay on compensation, if you serve an ungrateful master, serve him the more. Put God in your debt. Every stroke shall be repaid. The longer the payment is withholden, the better for you, for compound interest on compound interest is the rate and usage of this exchequer. Speaking once more in terms that seem paradoxical, be reminded that the most profitable time a man devotes to labor is that for which he receives no direct or immediate financial compensation. For it must be remembered that there are two forms of compensation available to the man who works for wages. One is the wages he receives in money. The other is the skill he attains from his experiences, a form of compensation which often exceeds monetary remuneration, for skill and experience are the worker's most important stock and trade through which he may promote himself to higher pay and greater responsibilities. The attitude of the man who follows the habit of going the extra mile is this: he recognizes the truth that he is receiving pay for schooling himself for a better position and greater pay. This is an asset of which no worker can be cheated, no matter how selfish or greedy his immediate employer may be. It is the compound interest on compound interest which Emerson mentioned. It was this very asset which enabled Charles M. Schwab to climb, step by step, from the lowly beginning as a day laborer to the highest position his employer had to offer, and it was this asset as well which brought M.R. Schwab a bonus of more than 10 times the amount of his salary. The $1 million bonus which Mr. Schwab received was his payoff for having put his best efforts into every job he performed, a circumstance, let us remember, which he controlled entirely. And it was a circumstance that could not have happened if he had not followed the habit of going the extra mile. Mr. Carnegie had but little, if anything, to do with the circumstance. It was entirely out of his hands. Let us be generous by assuming that M.R. Carnegie paid off because he knew Mr. Schwab had earned the additional pay which had not been promised him. But the actual fact may be that he paid off rather than lose so valuable a man. And here let us note that the man who follows the habit of going the extra mile thereby places the purchaser of his services under a double obligation to pay a just compensation, one being an obligation based upon his sense of fairness, the other based on his sense of fear of losing a valuable man. Thus we see that no matter how we view the principle of going the extra mile, we come always to the same answer, that it pays compound interest on compound interest to all who follow the habit. And we understand, too, what a great industrial leader had in mind when he said, "Personally, I am not so much interested in a 40 hours per week minimum work law as I am in finding how I can crowd 40 hours into a single day." The man who made that statement has an abundance of the 12 riches, and he freely admits that he attained his riches mainly by working his way up from a lowly beginning, applying the habit of going the extra mile every step of the way. It was this same man who said, "If I were compelled to risk my chances of success upon but one of the 17 principles of achievement, I would, without hesitancy, stake everything on the principle of going the extra mile." Fortunately, however, he was not obligated to make this choice, for the 17 principles of individual achievement are related to each other like the links of a chain. Therefore they blend into a medium of great power through coordination of their use. The omission of any one of these principles would weaken that power, just as the removal of a single link would weaken the chain. The power of the 17 principles consists not in the principles, but in their application and use. When the principles are applied, they change the chemistry of the mind from a negative to a positive mental attitude. It is this positive mental attitude which attracts success by leading one to the attainment of the 12 riches. Each of these principles represents, through its use, a definite, positive quality of the mind, and every circumstance that draws upon the power of thought calls for the use of some combination of the principles. The 17 principles may be likened to the 26 letters of the alphabet through the combinations of which all human thought may be expressed. The individual letters of the alphabet convey little or no meaning, but when they are combined into words they may express any thought one can conceive. The 17 principles are the alphabet of individual achievement, through which all talents may be expressed in their highest and most beneficial form, and they are the medium of expression which has been responsible for the great American system of free enterprise, the American form of government, and the American way of life in general. Hence they provide the means by which one may attain the great master key to riches.